Today, we're diving into one of the 20th century's most iconic and tragic love stories. But we're not just looking at it through the usual lens of history or biography. Instead, we're going to treat it as a fascinating case study in what you might call relational architecture, using a system that claims to find the hidden patterns of destiny written right into our calendars. John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, to the public, they were the absolute epitome of 90s glamour and style. The press, of course, built this incredible narrative of a perfect fairy tale romance. But as we all know now, behind that beautiful facade, their reality was famously turbulent. And that really gets to the heart of what we're exploring today. Was all that friction just a simple matter of circumstance and intense media pressure? Or were there deeper, more fundamental patterns at play? Patterns that were encoded right from the very beginning. Let's explore the architecture of their connection. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with their story, then introduce the unique analytical method we're using to decode it. From there, we'll dive into their compatibility or lack thereof, look at their family dynamics, the critical timing of the tragedy, and finally, what we can all learn from this. So, Section 1, American Royalty's Tragic Romance. Let's just quickly set the stage with the passionate, very public story that truly captivated the world. Their courtship was a total whirlwind. They first meet back in 92, they start dating seriously in 94, and then by 96, they're married in this top-secret ceremony on a remote Georgia island, really hoping to find a private world just for themselves. But of course, that spotlight was absolutely inescapable, and just 3 years into their marriage, their story came to its tragic end. And right here, this is the core of the conflict, isn't it? On the one hand, you have family describing them as true soulmates. But on the other, the reality was a marriage under so much strain that they were actively in counseling. This huge disconnect is exactly where our analysis begins. Which brings us to Section 2, a code in the calendar. Let's introduce the analytical framework for this explainer. It's called the CrownLine Method. So what is the CrownLine Method? Well, it's important to know it's not presented as some kind of mysticism. It's really a system of analytics and pattern recognition. It's based on strict mathematical formulas that just happen to use a 52-card deck as a kind of, a visual user interface to reveal these underlying patterns. And they are very, very clear about this. This system is positioned as strictly mathematical and analytical. It's explicitly not astrology, it's not cardology, it's not palm reading, and it's definitely not tarot. The idea is that it's a rules-based method for decoding relational dynamics, all based on a person's date of birth. You might be wondering, why a deck of cards? Well, the logic actually has some pretty fascinating historical roots. The original deck of playing cards was in fact a calendar. You have 52 cards for 52 weeks, 4 suits for the 4 seasons. It's a centuries-old system for mapping time, which is pretty cool. Okay, so here's how it works. Basically, the method assigns every person 2 key cards. First is the birth card. That one comes from a mathematical formula that uses your full birth date. The second is your astrological ruling card, which is connected to your zodiac sign, but really just as a calendar marker. Those 2 cards create the foundational data for the whole analysis. All right, now for the really interesting part. Let's apply this exact framework directly to John and Carolyn and see what kinds of patterns emerge. So here they are. These are their cards. John, born November 25th, is identified as the 8 of hearts, and he has a 10 of clubs as his ruling card. Carolyn, born January 7th, is the 7 of spades with a 4 of diamonds ruling card. This right here is our primary data set. And right away, the top-line finding from this analysis is, it's pretty unambiguous. Their foundational chemistry shows really significant signs of misalignment right from the very beginning. So the system flags 4 really clear signals of friction right off the bat. First, they don't share any matching numbers or suits across their 4 main cards. Then you have this fundamental clash with their birth cards. His is an even number, hers is an odd. And even the colors are in opposition. His red heart versus her black spade. In this model, every single one of these points to a relationship built on inherent challenge, not natural harmony. But it gets even more interesting. The analysis goes a layer deeper, and it starts looking at the patterns within their own family trees to try and understand what might have drawn them together so powerfully despite all this misalignment. So first, let's take a look at John's connection with his mother, the iconic Jackie Kennedy. His 8 of hearts shares a numerical link with Jackie's ruling card, which was the 8 of clubs. Now, within this system, that shared 8 is identified as a wealth catalyst, a really powerful, energetic bond that fosters ambition and success. And this is where it gets really fascinating. Here's the parallel. Carolyn's father, William Bessette, had the exact same ruling card as Jackie, the 8 of clubs. So the analysis suggests that Carolyn may have been subconsciously drawn to John's 8 energy, precisely because it felt so familiar. It was mirroring a primary pattern from her own childhood. And this reveals a crucial insight from the whole analysis, and maybe one we can all learn from. We are so often drawn to what feels familiar, but familiarity does not equal compatibility. It might explain that powerful initial magnetic attraction, but it's no guarantee of a harmonious long-term partnership. Okay, so we've established that their foundational compatibility was, well, challenging. But what about the timing of the tragedy? This brings us to the forensic timing analysis for July of 1999. Okay, what you're seeing here is John Jr.'s timing chart for the very week of his death. In this system, each position on this grid represents a different planetary influence, and it creates this map of challenges and opportunities. The analysis zeroes in on the specific cards that fell into high-risk positions during this exact window of time. And for him, this system flags 3 absolutely critical indicators that week. His ruling card, the 10 of clubs, was in the Mars column, which signifies aggression, risk, or fire. His weekly Mercury card was the Jack of Spades, signaling a major warning. And most chillingly, his daily card for July 16th was the 9 of Spades, which this method identifies as one of the death cards. Now let's look at Carolyn's chart for the same period. This shows her 28-day cycle. So the question becomes, was she also navigating her own high-risk cycle at the same time? And according to this analysis, absolutely. On July 16th, she was in a 4-day period governed by Uranus, the planet of sudden, completely unexpected change. The card for her in this specific period was the 5 of Spades, and its position in the Neptune column is interpreted to signify a fundamental change of status, in this case, from life to death. So when you put it all together, the method suggests this tragedy wasn't just some random, singular event. It was the result of a collision, a relationship with a foundation of poor compatibility, navigating a period of intensely critical and high-risk timing cycles for both of them at the exact same time. It created a perfect storm they just couldn't navigate. So why does any of this matter beyond this one tragic, famous case study? Well, the argument is that this type of analysis can actually be a really practical tool for navigating all kinds of relationships in our own lives. I mean, think about it. The proposed applications go way beyond just romance. Imagine vetting a business partner for innate compatibility, or selecting a financial advisor who is mathematically aligned with your success. You could even use it for choosing a doctor or a nanny. The goal is to understand the hidden architecture of any important connection. Really, the ultimate takeaway here is a call to become more conscious of the architecture of our own relationships, to look beyond just the surface-level stuff and try to understand the deeper patterns at play. Who in your life empowers you? Who consistently challenges you? This kind of analytical approach suggests there are ways to see these patterns much more clearly before they play out. And that really leaves us with one final, provocative question for you to think about. It's not just about who you happen to meet in life, but about the connections you consciously choose to build and maintain. So, who is in your deck?